welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 548 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, not really asked to agree with me and asked you to hear me out. We saw a wave. A good number of coaches get fired on the college football level. And a lot of people questioned why I stood 10 toes down in saying that out of all the coaches that were being fired, James Franklin was probably the best one. And I understand that it didn't necessarily work in Penn State. But what I mean by that is he didn't reach the ultimate goal. He never got that national championship. Obviously, we know the history and the record of James Franklin when he goes up against top 10 talent or top 10 teams. But here's my thing. This is obviously coming off the back and off the news that James Franklin is taking the Virginia Tech job. I think that is a perfect place for James Franklin. Look, I completely believe that fit matters not just with athletes, not just with, which team you go to, which team you're drafted to. It matters for coaches. Do I think that James Franklin is a national championship type coach? Honestly, no. He hasn't shown that he can be that. He had ample opportunity at Penn State. He has not shown that he can be the guy to take your franchise, to take your program to another level. And when I mean another level, I mean a national championship. He has not proven to be a national championship type coach. However, what has James Franklin proven? Why did I say and why did I think that James Franklin not only was the best available coach after getting fired? Why did I think that James Franklin was going to be the first coach to get hired after being fired, which turns out I was right? James Franklin has proven that he can turn around a program. That's why I said expectations are different for different people. Expectations are different for different organizations. James Franklin, he turned around Penn State. James Franklin is a good coach. I believe Virginia Tech is god awful right now. They had the season from hell. They fired their coach. It has been a awful season for Penn State. Not Penn State, I'm sorry, for Virginia Tech. And what James Franklin is great at, i.e. turning around a program, he will be great for Virginia Tech, in my opinion, on top of the fact of there's not any championship aspirations for Virginia Tech. Nobody thinks that Virginia Tech is going to be. Virginia Tech really ain't been a national championship type school since Mike Vick. I don't think that there's any expectation that James Franklin is going to turn this into an NCAA powerhouse. Is going to turn this into a national championship. No. But what I do expect is, and what I think that Virginia Tech, and what I think a lot of people are expecting is, he will turn this organization around for the better. And that is James Franklin's power. That's why I thought James Franklin is one of, if not the best coaches that was available. I know the buyout was going to be a little tricky, and it turns out that now Penn State only owes him like $9 million instead of how much they did owe him. At least on paper. I know you don't play sports on paper, but at least on paper, this feels like the best spot for James Franklin. This feels like James Franklin was selected to do what he does best, which is turn the organization around for the better. But there isn't really much championship aspirations to this. It'd be different if you went to a Florida. It'd be different if you went to a LSU. There's national championship aspirations to those teams just because they're in the SEC. And again, I know listening to me say it, and I know some people are going to say, well, then James Franklin isn't that good of a coach if, you don't expect a national championship. That's not true. Again, a lot of people, and I even did it, which is kind of why he got fired. A lot of people look at that record against top 10 opponents, but people forget, and people want to turn a blind eye to the fact that he has a massive winning record when we talk about the grand scheme of his coaching tenure at Penn State. Again, they want to look at that top 10 record, but they don't want to look at the fact that look at Penn State before James Franklin, look at Penn State after. If we're calling a spade, if we're being completely honest about it, there are some coaches that are great but aren't national championship caliber coaches. You want a prime example, which is going to hurt me, but I'll be honest. Chip Kelly was a great coach for Oregon. Chip Kelly turned the organization around. Chip Kelly really, I'm not going to say put Oregon on the map, but was a key cog to Oregon being or turning into the powerhouse that they turned into. Chip Kelly did his job. Once you saw that Chip Kelly was great, and once they saw that Chip Kelly, wow, he turned this organization around, he's getting good recruits. Chip Kelly is pretty good. Once you saw that, that's when the national championship aspirations started to come in, and that's when he started to fall short. But Chip Kelly turned around the organization that is Oregon, the school, the program. But I don't think Chip Kelly was ever a national championship caliber coach. Yeah, he went, but did he win? Oregon is one of those teams that they've always been so close. They went to 2, I believe. I know they lost to Cam Newton in Auburn. They lost to Ezekiel Elliott in Ohio State. And they've always been either a play or 2 away or a game away. They've been good. They just never won the big thing. And I don't think Chip Kelly's first national championship, if I'm not mistaken, was just last year as was it offensive coordinator for Ohio State? So, never saying that Chip Kelly was a bad coach. Again, Chip Kelly turned around the Oregon organization. But he was never I don't think he was ever a championship caliber coach. Same with James Franklin. James Franklin hasn't proven that when there's championship aspirations, you're good enough to seize the moment. But he has shown that he is an exceptional coach and he can turn around an organization. And Virginia Tech just so happens to be an organization that needs some type of guidance because this has been an awful year for them. So I think that this is a perfect hire. I think not just for Virginia Tech, but it's a perfect hire for James Franklin. Again, you're going from somewhere that the lights, maybe the expectations are unrealistic, but the expectations are still, this is Penn State. You got to be national contender. You're going from that to, there's really the only expectation is that you do your best pretty much at Virginia Tech. I know that seems like a oversimplification, but that's how it is. I think James Franklin's going to flourish. I think Virginia Tech is going to flourish. I think that this is a perfect marriage. And we'll see. This is the first domino. I didn't think James Franklin was going to be available for, obviously I think he was going to be available for like the Florida and LSU job, But I didn't think that he would be a good fit because you're going from a program that has maybe some unrealistic expectations to another program in the SEC that is just a different caliber. There's people people are ready to. I mean, Auburn. Auburn should not have no type of championship aspirations yet, and still Hugh Freak got up out of there, or they fired him. That's what I'm saying. So, congratulations to James Franklin for getting off the market and taking the Virginia Tech job. I think it's a perfect match for them. One thing we're gonna talk about. What was that, week 10, week 11? One thing that my mother always told me was the worst thing that you can do to somebody. The worst way that you can show someone that you do not care about them, that you don't see them as a human being, that you don't respect them as a person, is spit on them. That is lower than low to me. And I've been raised in thinking that is the lowest of the low. My mom always said, you spit on the ground, you don't spit on people. Obviously, this comes off, in the first game we'll talk about from this week's breakdown is the Steelers beating the Cincinnati Bengals 34-12. And the biggest story, obviously, coming out of this is Jamar Chase getting into an altercation with Jalen Ramsey, essentially spitting on Jalen Ramsey. Then, obviously, Jalen Ramsey responded the way that you think anybody would respond, that has some type of self-dignity. And I think the worst part about it, obviously the spitting is the worst part, but to add insult to injury, when he was asked by the reporters, he said he didn't do that. Jamar Chase said he didn't do that, even though we got him in 4K. Now, Jamar Chase has been suspended a game. I think he's been fined $500K for lying. We knew that this was going to be suspended. Or we knew that this, especially what happened with Jalen Carter in the first game of the season, we knew that he was going to be suspended. I just thought he was probably going to be suspended 2 games because the precedent has already been set. Jalen Carter already got suspended. You've already seen this before this year. On top of that, you lied, like bold-faced lied to the media. So I thought it was going to be 2 games. I understand that it's a game and a hefty fine, but $500K ain't nothing to people that are millionaires. So, but the overarching story in this is you don't really hear about this with button-up organizations, which broadens that statement. When's the last time you thought of Cincinnati being a buttoned-up organization? I'm not questioning the character of Jamar Chase. This isn't like he's done this before. But I've been upset a lot of times in my life. I've had people in my face. I've gotten to physical altercations. I've had people disrespect me, disrespect my family, into my face. Not once did I think about spitting on them. And I completely understand. I think that I don't remember seeing what happened, if there was any disciplinary actions to Jalen Ramsey. I don't know. I think there might have been a fine. If there is a fine, I understand. But I also understand that, there's again, and I don't know because I don't know if it's a certain type of community that doesn't understand that because I remember, not remember, but I went to work the other day or yesterday Monday, and for the life of me, there was a bunch of people that were saying they didn't understand why Jalen Ramsey responded the way that he responded. And then the age-old question of if you were paid $700 million, would you let someone spit on you? Like, here's my thing. The most expensive thing that I own, the most expensive thing that is in my possession is my integrity. Yeah, it's just spit to a lot of people. But, and like Jalen Ramsey said, bro, you can't disrespect anyone like that, man or woman. And yeah, I completely understand that Jamar Chase gets suspended. I'm kind of surprised he wasn't suspended for 2 games because again, this is not the first time this has happened this year. So, but let's talk about the game a little bit. When we heard that there's a chance that Joe Burrow could return, I said to myself, and I heard a lot of people say, "Yo, why? Why would Joe Burrow come back at least to this team?" It's not just the fact that he has turf toe, right? And it's not just the fact that he could be healed from turf toe. It's kind of like think about it like this, and I promise you I'm gonna piece it together. You ever have that friend that lies a lot, and he might lie a little bit there, he might lie a little bit here, and the lies are never that serious, but they are lies. And then you ever have another friend that never really lies, but he'll lie maybe once, and you view that differently. I'm saying it like this. Joe Burrow has an extensive history of injury. There's a reason why he's won Comeback Player of the Year twice. I think the only player in NFL history to do that. And it's not like you're coming back to a juggernaut. You're coming back to a team that has terrible offensive line issues, has terrible defensive issues. Spit aside, I still think Jamar Chase is one of, if not the best, wide receivers in the league. Yes, T. Higgins is probably the best second option in the league. Maybe go back and forth with him or Devontae Smith, but it would be different if this is the only thing that Joe Burrow has dealt with. If Joe Burrow never had an ACL, like if Joe Burrow hadn't had multiple seasons lost by injury, I would be like, yeah, I mean, they were they were essentially a game away from winning or from going to the playoffs last year. He's been to a Super Bowl. Yeah, I would have all the faith in the world Joe Burrow can turn this situation around. But turf toe is not the only thing that he's had. Joe Burrow has an extensive injury history on this team. And the offense ain't no better, or the offensive line's no better, defense no better. Even if Joe Burrow comes back, I don't think they have a shot of winning or getting to the playoffs. There's no point of coming back. And that proved this game proved a lot to me. This game was very important for the Bengals because there was a very slim chance, and there probably still is, but there was a very slim chance that we would see Joe Burrow again this year. And I believe that if they would have won this game, like Joe Burrow said in the press conference, the playoffs is still gettable and the division is wide open. I think that door has been closed. I'm not 100% sure who they play next week, but you're going to play them without Jamar Chase, and still the holes are still there. I'm shocked that Zach Taylor still got a job, to be honest with you, but it is what it is. Yeah. The Bengals are not a good team. They have two good players. They're not a good team. And honestly, if we want to go over to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I know they won, but they essentially won the battle, lost the war, because Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't been looking great the last few weeks, he broke his wrist, I think, his left wrist. So I don't know if he's going to be missing time. Probably is. And it just seems like he's at that age and he's at that point where he's playing to not get hit. He's not playing to make what I'm saying is you can tell he's anticipating the hit. He's kind of shriveling up once the pocket collapses. And again, the Pittsburgh Steelers is also another team that does not have a good offensive line. So while they're 6-4, the toughest part of their schedule is coming up. They still got to play the Bills. They got to play the Ravens twice. It's going to be tough, man. But congratulations to the Pittsburgh Steelers for beating the Cincinnati Bengals 34-12. For the last few years, Kansas City has been that team that's been able to win the close game. If you're in a game with Kansas City and it's maybe a 3-point game or a one score game, and Kansas City has a shot, 9 times out of 10, Kansas City has come through. Kansas City has they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Andy Reid. They usually get the job done. Last year, they were big on winning one-score games. I think they won the most one-score games in the league last year. So that's why this year has been so alarming. The Denver Broncos beat the Kansas City Chiefs 22-19. Now, do not get me wrong. Bo Nix outplayed Patrick Mahomes. He had more passing yards, even though he didn't have a touchdown. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes. However, this wasn't a great offensive game for Bo Nix. Honestly, and that's saying a lot about Patrick Mahomes as well. This was not a great game overall. When the Kansas City Chiefs holds a team to 22 points, they usually could win that game. And this is yet another game where, and I will say this, and I'll give credit where credit is due. Bo Nix made some incredible plays. He made some incredible passes, especially down the stretch. I'm thinking about that last, 3rd and 15. I think that they converted, or 3rd and 10. Bo Nix had some bombs down the field that he connected with. So he had some good moments, but overall, this is yet another game where you can question the offense. But this, in my opinion, says more about the Kansas City Chiefs than it does the Broncos. Not taking anything back, taking anything away from the Broncos. Their defense is still stout. And again, they're doing all this without Patrick Surtain, who is arguably the best corner in football, the reigning defensive player of the year. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that they're going to miss the playoffs, but they're in danger of missing the playoffs. And I can't envision a world where Patrick Mahomes, fully healthy Patrick Mahomes, fully healthy Travis Kelce, fully healthy Chris Jones, fully healthy team, essentially, and an Andy Reid-led team does not make the playoffs. But that is the realization that they're faced with, possibly. Again, I think that there's still enough games and people or bad teams they can beat, but still, right now, they're out the playoff race. It's crazy. And again, it's Patrick. He has not shown, at least this year, as great as he is, he has not shown the ability this year to overcome how bad the offensive line is, to overcome the fact of his skill positions haven't really done. I mean, Travis Kelce had 9 receptions. The next best person had 6, which was Rashid Rice. Kareem Hunt rushed 13 carries for 59 yards. That's not going to get the job done, bro. And yeah. There's no way or shape or form that I think that this Kansas City Chiefs team is good enough to overcome I'll say it like this. The last few years, not for years, maybe the last 2 years, we've lamented about how poor the offensive line has been and how the defense has kind of carried this team. While Patrick Mahomes has been great, his skill positions haven't been great. His offensive line hasn't been great, but his defense has. As we're seeing this year, that looks like it has to be the case, and the defense has not been able to do that. Because there was nothing spectacular, at least offensively, that the Broncos did. They just capitalized when they had to capitalize. And as much as I still don't trust the Broncos because of their offense, this is one of the best teams in football because of that defense. And their offense isn't god-awful, but their defense is spectacular. I'm just being honest. Yeah. So, congratulations to the Denver Broncos for beating the Kansas City Chiefs 22-19. You know what I have not talked about enough, and this is on me. I have not given credit to how good the Philadelphia Eagles defense has been this year. And this is coming off the Eagles on Sunday Night Football beating the Detroit Lions 16-9. Now, we've seen games where Jared Goff has looked flustered. He hasn't looked comfortable. We've seen games where this offense, the Lions offense, has sputtered. We've seen games like that. I mean, they're 6-4. However, I don't think we've seen a game this year where Jared Goff and this offense was so discombobulated that it looks like they could do absolutely nothing when they needed to. And that's because of how stout this defense is. This is yet another game where Jalen Hurts doesn't throw for he threw for 135 yards and rushed for 31 yards and was sacked for 11 yards. So if we're doing a little bit of math, 124 plus 31 is 155. This is yet another game where he has less than 200 yards total off, this defense held one of the most explosive offenses in the league to just 6 points. Now, I understand that, your nature is your nature. What you do is what you do. And we all know that Dan Campbell is Mr. Go For It on fourth down. And obviously we praise Dan Campbell for having the confidence and having the resiliency to always have faith in your team that they're going to make it on the fourth down plays. Well, this game showed you what happens when obviously we've seen times where it hasn't worked. But this game, it continuously didn't work, and he continuously kept going kept going on the fourth down. Mind you, there was you would probably not know this by watching this game, but the Detroit Lions have one of the best kickers in the league. But you wouldn't know, because if they even get an inch across half field, they're going for it on fourth down. And I think the Eagles stopped them like 4 times. So that's 12 points. 12 more points that they probably could have had. I know it's not as simple as that, but and don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming this all on Dan Campbell. I'm not blaming this all on them not making the fourth down plays. But I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs went off five receptions for 107 yards, and he also carried the ball for 39 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't do much of anything. He had 12 targets for 2 catches. Damn. This Eagles defense is, and I'm also giving credit because I was very vocal in the beginning of the year saying that this defense is going to be a question mark, seeing as though they lost a lot of people. They lost a lot of pieces. And some of the pieces that they had wasn't playing up to snuff, at least the beginning of the season. Well, as we speak right now, one of the biggest reasons why they're 8-2 is because their defense is hellacious. Jalen Carter, Jordan, like their defense is like that. And their defense did an exceptional job in slowing down the second best offense, second or third best offense in the league to just 9 points. I will say, though, this offense, A.J. Brown, 7 receptions, 11 targets, 49 yards. And it's funny. We're about to move on, but it's funny. Every time I saw the deep ball, every time I watched Jalen Hurts launch a deep ball, I always said, "Yo, that's going to be incomplete." Like I just every time this game, not saying he can't throw, but every time this game I saw him launch a deep ball, I said, "Yeah, whoever's on the other end of that is not about to catch that." And lo and behold, most of Jalen Hurts' deep balls this game was overthrown or should have been intercepted. It was just, but hey, he won the game. They won the game, so congratulations to Philadelphia. I said this going in. I said that this was going to be possibly a Super Bowl preview. I said that whoever was going to win the game between the LA Rams and Seattle Seahawks was going to be the team, or was in good position of being the team that could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And the Rams beat the Seahawks 21-19. Now, you're probably looking at that score and thinking to yourself, the game wasn't that good. Matthew Stafford only threw for 130 yards. Sam Darnold threw for two. Damn. Hold up. Hold up. Hold on. Yo, I think, and shout out to Sam Darnold, man. He's had a great season. There was a lot of questions coming into the season, seeing as though how last season ended for Sam Darnold when he was a Viking. And he had an incredible season last year, and people were saying that just an outlier? Was it quote unquote fool's gold? Was the Sam Darnold that we saw in that playoff game against the Rams, was that the real Sam Darnold, or was what we saw all season? Because what we saw in the playoff game is the Sam Darnold that we're used to seeing his NFL career. And I think that Sam Darnold has had an incredible career. Incredible season this year. Hell, I even said last episode that this Seattle Seahawks team is a juggernaut. They they are destroying people when they get a chance to. I didn't realize this man. There have been a couple games, and this happens. Maybe not this, but there are games. People have bad games. We're going to talk about Baltimore in a second. People have bad games. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're terrible. That doesn't mean that they aren't good. It just means they had a bad game. And there are some bad games that are different than others. There are some bad games that aren't as bad as others. Patrick Mahomes' bad game is nowhere close to, let's say, Justin Fields' bad game, who got benched. Sam Darnold went 29 for 44, 279 yards, 0 touchdown, 4 interceptions. Boy, which is crazy because, the amount of weapons that he has. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker III, Rashid Shaheed, Cooper Kupp, Zach Charbonnet. He throwing 4 interceptions is crazy. And they almost had they almost had 5 turnovers because A.J. Barner fumbled the ball, but the Rams, man, this is a big game because, one, they forced 4 interceptions, but 2, Matthew Stafford, as great as his offense has been, Matthew Stafford didn't have to do much this game. Again, he only threw 28 times. He only had 130 passing yards, and I know he had no rushing yards. So he didn't have to do much, and they still won the game. That is the sign of a great. Their defense is good, great actually. That's the sign of a great team. They're balanced, and as prolific as his offense is, he didn't have to do much. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, 21-19 is not a good game. This was a defensive-minded game, because again, Matthew Stafford, they only had 130 yards. He only threw for 130 yards. So, and they only had 119 yards on the ground. So, I think that this shows that the Rams are better than the Seahawks, at least for right now. But I do think that I feel more confident going out of this game that the Rams, maybe if they down the line they see Eagles, they see a Lions, who knows, they could possibly prevail. And honestly, I think the Seahawks, because their defense is so good as well, and their offense is explosive, they can be good too. But Congratulations to the Rams for beating the Seahawks 21-19. This team, I'm conflicted about this team. I've stood on the table and preached that the Bills' key to victory, key to a Super Bowl, rest on the shoulders of not just Josh Allen, but on James Cook. I said that this team, this Buffalo Bills team, plays better when Josh Allen doesn't have to do much. Not saying that Josh Allen is great, but when Josh Allen has to play Super Bowl or has to play Superman, that is when the mistakes happen a lot more. And then he goes out, puts on the Superman cape because nobody else is helping, and he has 6 total touchdowns. He threw for 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, and ran for 3 touchdowns. And he needed to play Superman. Granted, you can just throw both of these defenses out the window. The Buffalo Bills beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 44-32. No defense was played at all. It was just strictly a track meet. And which is insane. Shout out to Sean Tucker. I don't know where the hell he's been, but 19 carries for 106 yards, 2 touchdowns for the Bucs. I'm shocked, bro, because it felt like watching the game that it was just a track meet and Baker Mayfield was throwing the ball all over the place. He only had 173 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I definitely thought that he had to be in the 200-300s because Josh Allen, 317 yards. Again, I'm conflicted, man, because in one breath, I do believe that there are times the Buffalo Bills had. I say it like this: they did not look. They've been dominant all year, but they haven't looked this good all year, outside of probably the second half of the Ravens game. And Josh Allen had to play Superman. The man averaged 10.6 yards a damn. Josh Allen, I don't think he will win it, but he had his MVP moment this game. They needed it. There's defense optional. Actually, defense was declined most of this game. But Josh Allen was incredible, bro. And Baker Mayfield was good too, but again, you're down. You're down. You're down Mike Evans. You're down Chris Godwin. You're down Bucky Irving. It's gonna be tough. How did Teddy Bridgewater get a rush? Yeah, it's crazy. Emeka Buka. Yeah. Congratulations. Oh, and he did get a fumble. He had an interception and a fumble. Yeah, that's tough. Congratulations to the Buffalo Bills for beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 44-32. I will say this. Tampa Bay is a really good team. Besides the score, their defense is usually good. It's just they need to be fully healthy to compete. And they're not right now. And as good as then, that's why Baker Mayfield probably is not the league MVP or leading anymore. If you're not healthy and this team is not good enough to win a track meet, as we clearly can see, or at least against the Buffalo Bills when you're playing against someone like Josh Allen. So, yeah, congrats. This was probably let's stay on this for a second. The Baltimore Ravens go into Cleveland and win 23-16, bringing Baltimore's season record to 5-5 right now, which If you remember, they were 1-5 at one point. Did you know this is the first time since I think 2020 that Baltimore swept Cleveland in the regular season? Did you know that this was the first game in almost 3 years that Lamar Jackson did not throw a touchdown pass? Better yet, Lamar Jackson did not have a touchdown. There's always craziness between Baltimore and the Browns, and this was the definition of a gritty game. You had to lean on Derrick Henry, 18 carries for 103 yards. Mark Andrews had his longest rush and the second longest rush by a tight end, I think, ever. One carry for 35 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, it was a 4th and 1, and then they faked it, and it was a great play. This Baltimore team, this is probably I don't know what it is, man, but this is probably the second. Let me see. Oh, hold on. That sucks. This is probably the second game in a row where Lamar Jackson didn't play well. But you're playing against one of the best defenses in football, and I will say it now. Not only I don't care what their record is. Not only should, and I believe there's not a defensive player even close. And that shout out to T.J. Watt, shout out to Patrick Surtain, shout out to Derek Stingley, shout out to Micah Parsons. There is not a defensive player close to Myles Garrett right now. Myles Garrett, I think, had 4 sacks on the day. There is not a defensive player playing better than Myles Garrett. And the way that Myles Garrett is playing this year rivals some of those Aaron Donald years. And there's a lot of people that consider Aaron Donald the greatest, or at least one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Myles Garrett is going crazy, hands down. And shout out to the Baltimore Ravens for the offensive line, bro. I don't know who number 77. I think his name is Falele or something like that. He got to be one of the worst offensive linemen in football. I'm sorry. The number 77 on the Ravens got to be one of the worst offensive linemen in football, dog. I don't. Oh, my gosh. But, yeah, this is the second game in a row where Lamar Jackson necessarily didn't play well. And I think, you're going against the Browns defense, and he did finish with 2 interceptions. Only one of them, I would say, was probable. You can put on Lamar Jackson. The other one, bro, it went off. Wasn't it Keon Mitchell? It went off his hands. So, yeah. Oh, and the other one, he threw it and it got batted up in the air. So technically, either one of them should be on Lamar Jackson, but it is what it is. But yeah, this is yet another win for Baltimore. Now let's talk about the big news from this game, and that is Dylan Gabriel goes out with a concussion, and Shedeur Sanders goes in the game. And he had some moments, but overall he didn't look good. He had an interception. He went 4 for 16. It just didn't look good. Now you're hearing a lot of people, obviously, which I don't understand why he did this, because it's just the optics, bro. I don't get why he did this. But Kevin Stefanski comes out and says that Shedeur Sanders, this is the first time in this game since he got drafted that he got first team reps in the game. And you even saw it, like, and they said it. They didn't know his cadence like that. They weren't familiar with. It was just a lot. I just don't get it. Now you're hearing a bunch of people say, this is normal, this, that, and third, and I'm like, okay, well, my thing is, that Dylan Gabriel, I understand that he's a rookie. I understand that you want everything. You're trying your best to make that work. Dylan Gabriel has an extensive injury history, and you knew that when you drafted him. Why not be prepared? And on top of that, let's say Bailey Zappi, because there are reports that possibly Bailey Zappi was getting, if Bailey Zappi was getting first team reps, then why throw Shedeur Sanders out there? When he didn't have any reps. And on top of that, if you knew he didn't have any reps and you knew that he was better than Bailey Zappi, or you were going to go to him instead of Bailey Zappi, why was Bailey Zappi getting first team reps? Do you see the contradiction here? Like, I understand that people are saying, well, usually backups don't get first team reps. Okay. But we're not talking about, people want to bring up, Peyton Manning winning all the reps. Nobody on that team is Peyton Manning. They were saying Brett Favre, he had all the reps. Nobody on that team is Brett Favre. Like, what? I'm not going to go, because I've never been in an NFL locker room like that. I'm not going to call it malpractice. What I'm saying is Kevin Stefanski definitely didn't put, not just himself, he didn't put his team, and he didn't put Shedeur in the best position to win. He didn't prepare. I don't know, bro. But Shedeur Sanders will be starting next week. Who they play next week? They are playing the. Oh shoot! Nope. Give me a second. I want to see who they're playing, because I know Shedeur Sanders is starting next week. They're playing the Raiders. Hey, it's a big game, man. But congratulations to the Ravens for beating the Browns 23-16. Oh, actually, hold on. I said this, and people are killing me for it. But I don't think that Shedeur Sanders is going to succeed in Cleveland. I think that Kevin Stefanski necessarily doesn't want him to succeed. I don't think the organization really wants him to succeed. That's all I'm saying. I mean, there's nothing. Again, I know that, and I know that Dylan Gabriel is a rookie, so you're gonna want him to get most of the first team reps, but to get absolutely none since being drafted, yeah, nah. Again, congratulations to the Baltimore Ravens for beating the Cleveland Browns 23-16. The Green Bay Packers beat the Giants 27-20. Jordan Love did not have a good game again. He threw for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns. Malik Willis threw for a touchdown. Shout out to him. What's his name? Josh Jacobs got hurt. I don't know the severity of the injury right now, but he got hurt, and it looks like he could miss a couple games, maybe a game. I don't know. Jameis Winston didn't play bad, and he had one interception, but, bro, that interception is solely on Jalen Hyatt. Why did you stop running? That's my thing, bro. Why do wide receivers stop running on the route sometimes? I know I'm not a NFL, like I've never played football like that, or I've never been a wide receiver. But why stop running? If he would have kept going, I'm not saying he would have caught the ball, but Jameis Winston would not have thrown an interception. Jameis Winston played really good. It's just this is yet another time where the Packers defense played well. The Packers offense, I'm starting to realize it's just not gonna be up to snuff. You gotta, yeah. It's gotta be the defense that carries them. Michael Parsons had a good game because if not, they're gonna struggle. But hey, congratulations to the Green Bay Packers, and I'm interested to see they're gonna have to weather the storm because we don't know how long Josh Jacobs, if he's gonna miss any games, how long that's gonna be. So, congratulations to the Green Bay Packers for beating the Giants 27-20. Hey, I can't. I can't put into. I don't understand this Carolina Panthers team. I don't. One week they look like the worst team in football. One week Bryce Young looks like he shouldn't even be in the league. One week the offense is putrid. One week it's a Rico Dowell show. It's I can't understand it, bro. The Carolina Panthers beat the Falcons in overtime 30-27. Bryce Young had his best game ever. 31 for 45, 448 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was sacked 5 times, but still. He threw a career high 448 yards. Now, if you want to take the sacks away, 419 yards. Did he rush for anything? Rush for -1. So, I can't quantify how this team is crazy, bro. It's insane. Shout out to them, man. Rico Dowell's only had 45 rushing yards, but when you have Bryce Young, McMillan had 130 yards and Xavier Legette had 83. McMillan, the rookie, had 2 touchdowns and Xavier had 1. They were going crazy, bro. Yeah, Bryce Young, bro. No, I can't quantify this team, and let's go over to the Falcons, bro. The Falcons have to be. I can't. I feel terrible for the Falcons because of the situation that they're in. And here's my thing. I'm gonna say it, and most people are gonna say it, but and so put it aside, I'm gonna say something, and I understand that you always want to shoot for the best option. You never want to move on the worst option. Like, you never want to make a decision thinking that the worst option is going to happen. While the worst option can happen, you don't want to say, oh, no, it's going to happen. I get that. But I'm going to say it. Michael Penix gets hurt. They're looking at the severity, or they're trying to figure out the severity. It could be an ACL, but they're saying that more than likely he's out for the season. Because it's at least somewhere in the knee or around the knee. We're talking about a player that had extensive, and I'm talking about multiple season-ending ACL injuries in college. In fact, one of the reasons why they were praising him so heavily when he went to Washington and made it all the way to the national championship is because the injuries that Michael Penix sustained, I think it was in Indiana, you don't come back from. And he came back multiple times. But this is the fear that you had. Now, I understand why You kept Kirk Cousins on the roster, even though I don't think anybody really wanted to trade for him from what you were asking for. But Michael Penix is out. This is why people say they were a little confused why Michael Penix went, I think it was 7th overall in the first round. Injury history. He's older than I think all the other quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks. So it's like he can get hurt. They're in such a bad spot because it doesn't look like Michael Penix is going to play again this year, and they don't even own their first-round pick. The Rams own their first-round pick for next year. So, in all actuality, there is a world where the Rams win the Super Bowl and have a top 5 pick. Because Drake London's out, too. The Falcons are in such a bad spot, bro. They're in such a bad spot. But because Kirk Cousins, he hasn't been good really since he hurt his shoulder last year. Bijan Robinson, there's only so much you can do. Drake London, yeah. I don't know. Congratulations to the Panthers for beating the Falcons 30-27. Hey, Brock Purdy came back, and San Francisco beat the Cardinals 41-22. I think Brock Purdy gives them a better chance for a playoff run, gives them a better chance in the playoffs, obviously, than Mac Jones. And obviously, when you have Christian McCaffrey playing and stuff like that, then, yeah, I think you have a shot. However, I don't think this team is a deep playoff team because of all the injuries. And, I don't. What's going on with Brian Robinson, bro? I know he's playing behind Christian McCaffrey, but why does he only have 8 carries? I don't know. But, look at Jacoby Brissett threw for 452 yards. He had numbers, but 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It looked like a Jameis Winston game. Remember he had the 30 for 30? Dang, he threw the ball 57 times. Jesus loves you. Yeah, I think Brock Purdy makes them better. I think he's better than Mac Jones, but I still don't trust this team just due to their injuries. I don't trust this team in the playoffs. But Brock Purdy did look good, and he threw for 200 yards. Did he rush at all? Yeah, -70. But yeah, I think he makes the 49ers better. Just maybe not. They're not a Super Bowl caliber team at all with his injuries. So, yeah. Congratulations for 49ers for beating the Arizona Cardinals 41-22. I think it's a report came out after this game saying that Caleb Williams frequently frustrates the coaching staff for the Bears. This is coming off the Bears beating the Minnesota Vikings 19-17. Caleb Williams, 16 for 32, 193 yards. He was also sacked 2 times, which due to his elusiveness, if he didn't have that, he would have been sacked like 5-6 times. And he had 26 rushing yards. And if it wasn't for they honestly won this game because J.J. McCarthy has not been good this year. He may have had quarters, but he hasn't been good this year. It's bad, and don't get me wrong, I understand the frustration, but it's bad when Justin Jefferson is expressing frustration. He is pissed. Like, the man, J.J. McCarthy threw for 150 yards, two interceptions, 1 touchdown. And I don't know how many times you can underthrow Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. Minnesota has a quarterback problem. And I'm not saying he can't turn around, but at least I don't think he turned around this year. Again, I talked about this, bro. With a rookie quarterback, they just need times and reps. And JJ McCarthy's been hurt. It's And I know they're number one, I believe, in their division, the Bears, but I don't know if I trust their offense, bro. I don't know. I definitely don't trust their defense. But yeah. Yeah. But congratulations to the Bears for beating the Vikings 19-17. Yo, Monday Night Football. The Cowboys destroyed the Raiders 33-16. Yo, George Pickens went crazy. 9 receptions for 144 yards. Bro, the Raiders are not a good team. We're going to talk about them briefly in a second, but this was all Cowboys, bro. 4 touchdowns, 268 yards for Dak Prescott. Javonte Williams had 22 carries for 93 yards. Like, CeeDee Lamb only had to have 5 receptions for 66 yards. This was, I will say, the Cowboys, because of how the bottom of the NFC is looking, the Cowboys still have a chance to make the playoffs. It's just, their offense has to be prolific, and they're going against one of the worst teams overall in the league. So let's take this win with a grain of salt, because again, you in the playoffs you're not seeing no Raiders. The Raiders are 2-8 now. But I will say that this offense was great. Again, George Pickens is showing why, if he just gets his, because apparently him and CeeDee Lamb were suspended the first drive of the game, which I don't, for actions detrimental to the team. I don't know what they did, but you see how important they are, bro. 144 yards for George Pickens, who's the second option. This offense can be prolific. It's just got to get their defense together. And again, they played the worst team and one of the worst teams in football. Now let me get to the Raiders. I said this before, and I will say it again. Good football player. Really good football player. I respect what he did in college. Ashton Genty is not I think sixth overall pick on a team like. Well, if you're going to pick a running back sixth, that means that there has to be a lot of things right about your team. There has to be a lot of things. There can't be a lot of holes on your team if you're picking a running back sixth. That is far from the case from this Raiders team. And that was far from the case from this Raiders team going into the draft. I'm not saying you go get a quarterback, but you don't get when your defense is as poor as it is, when your offensive line is as poor as it is, when your receiving core is as poor as it is, even with Jacoby Myers when they had him, it's still not good. When your corner, your secondary has to be one of the worst. I get it when you're a Pete Carroll team is gonna run man. George Pickens dominated them. They were licking their chops. George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, they combined for 200 yards. They were destroyed. Ashton Genty is not a 6th overall pick on this team. Maybe if, let's say, where's a good offensive line? It needs a running back. They don't have a good offensive line, but maybe if the Chiefs needed a running back at 6th, he would be that pick, but not the Raiders. The Raiders need so much help. It's bad, bro. It's bad. Congratulations to the Cowboys for beating the Raiders 33-16. Yo, I can't. This is one of those games, bro. This is one of those games, and I feel like Justin Herbert. Here's the thing. You can't praise, and I'm talking to myself as well. You can't praise Justin Herbert for overcoming having a poor offensive line and not having the best weapons at the receiver court. You can't praise him for overcoming that and beating, someone like the Kansas City Chiefs or winning those games. And then when they lose games, when they lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars 35-6, you can't then say, well, his offensive line is not good and he's missing key pieces on offensive line. His offense ain't that good. Like, you can't say that. And it feels like almost every year Justin Herbert has these games. Justin Herbert, 10 for 18 for 81 yards. Mind you, we're not talking about a bust here. We're talking about one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league threw for 81 yards. And don't get me wrong. The Jacksonville Jaguars defense has a chance to be really good at times, but ain't no juggernauts on this team. I know it was so long ago, but this is also the rematch of the playoff game where the Chargers were up by like 20-something points at halftime and lost that game. And Justin Herbert got, boy. Again, you can't praise Justin Herbert for not having or for overcoming not having, great offensive line or great weapons when they win, but when they lose, it's not his fault. He played awful. And Trevor Lawrence ain't do much neither. He only threw for 153 yards and threw a touchdown and interception. So, yeah, man. Sucks. And, lastly, the Houston Texans beat the Tennessee Titans 16-13. I mean, Houston, they still have playoff chances. They're 5-5. Tennessee Titans is the worst team in football, hands down. So, even though they did play decent, their defense played decent, but they're the worst team in football by far. Their whole team's not good, and Calvin Ridley's out for the season, which was their number one receiver. Yeah, they're not good. This is yet another game where Cam Ward has more rushing yards than Tony Pollard. They're not good. Darius Mills had 274 passing yards. Shout out to them. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe if you like the content. I appreciate you guys, and it definitely means a lot. Also, for my DSPs, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, if you like what you're listening to, if you want to hear my luscious voice, please subscribe, please rate, please comment, please share. We're trying to grow the podcast in all areas, and I cannot do without you guys. So for all my DSP listeners, no platform is bigger than the other or more important than the other to me. They're all important. Please subscribe, rate, share, follow, all that. Also, for my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, I post pretty much daily, whether that's reels, whether that's stories. If you want to get to me, you want to go back and forth, just leave in the comment. Keep it respectful. I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're listening to me and you have an opinion about something. Both are important to me. So if you keep it respectful, just leave in the comments. But if you do leave a comment, make sure that you follow. It means a lot. Until next time, much love.